Hello, welcome to Die Rollin. I'm the ever excitable Adam, and today I have the pleasure to talk to you about Terminus Frontier. Now, you're either here because you want to know more about Terminus Frontier, or you just enjoy watching my videos and you're like, oh, Adam put up a new video. I wonder what he's talking about this time. Well, what I'm talking about this time, well, as I already said, is Terminus Frontier. Now, I'm going to start this with a little kind of caveat here, saying that I've not played the full breadth of this game yet. This is a narrative campaign game that you can play cooperatively with your friends or on your own, branching storylines, and yeah, there's a lot going on in this, as well as an overworld exploration or over universe exploration or over galaxy exploration, I should say. But yeah, I've not had any idea of that because it's not included in the prototype copy that you get. However, if you're after Space XCOM with a really clever leveling up system, deck building, all that good stuff, then stop watching the video and go and back it now. They're in the very last days. Do not sleep on this game. This is a fantastic title. Strategic, tactical, fun, thematic, and table presence. The components are just in the prototype itself, the components are fantastic. So the full game, chef's kiss. So go away and stop watching the video, do yourself a favor and go and back it now. If you're still watching this, you probably want a little more information. Now, I will say, I'm going to push you to other people's videos. There are so many videos for this game out there online. You should definitely go and check out some of the actual gameplay videos because there are some fantastic ones which really go into the mechanics and the nature of this game. I'll be giving you a brief overview of what I found with my time with this game. But yeah, there are a ton of actual play videos, and I always recommend watch those ones. Watch how a round or 2 rounds goes, and then you'll have an idea if this is something for you. At the very heart of this is a tactical deck builder. You're going to be, over a series of kind of missions, you're going to be upgrading your character, building out your skill deck and your ammo deck, and hopefully kicking a lot of villainous scum's ass along the way. The miniatures supplied with the prototype copy are, like I say, it's all prototype stuff. They look fantastic. The detail on them really good. And there's loads of standees as well in this as well. So this is one of those games that if, like me, you like to paint stuff before you play a board game, which is why a lot of my board games sit there unplayed because I just haven't got around to painting them, then this is good because you can play this with a couple of miniatures, which you can paint up, and then the standees are already done. So it's like, well, I don't have to paint 800 odd miniatures. So it's one of those where it's not going to take you long to paint them. You'll be playing this pretty soon. If you're one of those people who just want to paint miniatures and get them done so they look like the cards, and then you can play the game. So there's not a ton of miniatures to paint in this. It's a handful. The bosses in this look great. And let's just go and talk about the game. Okay, we're talking about components. I made some notes here so I don't miss anything because there's a lot to get through with this game. So, like I say, overview for this is a campaign game with some branching options about which way you go. Now, I love that about games because it gives you the option to replay this. And, if you've got a couple of gaming groups, then you can replay this again with another group and have a different experience than you did with the first group, for instance. Or you could play with the first group again and just try some other things. Now, each of these kind of missions can be played completely standalone. So if you just fancy playing a particular mission, then you can do that. So for instance, if you wanted to play one of the alternate paths that you didn't go down, you can just go, well, I wonder what would have happened if we went down that route. And they play very much standalone really well. Or like I say, you can go through the campaign where you'll be leveling your characters up. So in the actual game itself, there are 3 types of missions. There's your bog standard mission where you're just kind of going around shooting guys and doing objectives, like objective-based missions. Then you have your boss battlers, and this is a kind of level which is purely focused on a particular enemy and their enemy AI and how they operate and stuff. And there are a lot of boss battlers out there at the moment, and this looks like it's going to be a really fun one to play. I say looks like because I've not played a boss level. So once again, asterisk there. I've not played that type. I've just played the very first mission a couple of times just to get an idea of how it plays and if this is a game that I would recommend which it is. So you've got your boss battle, you've got your objective one, and then you also have a stealth mission. Stealth mission, again, I've not played one of those. It looks pretty good. You're sneaking about and you're trying to keep under the patrol's kind of radar. There's quite a few games now which do stealthy missions as well as other styles, and I really enjoy that kind of theme. So like I said, I've not played it, so I can't really tell you on that. I've just played this objective-based mission and loved it. So if they put the same kind of thought into those stealth missions, then yeah. I mean, the fact that I would recommend this just on those regular missions alone says a lot. So that's the 3 types of missions you're going to have. The normal objective-based ones, the boss, and the stealth. Now, this can be played solo, and what I enjoy about games these days where you can play solo, because to be fair, I don't often play kind of campaign games with multiple people, just because I have an absolute slew of board games coming through, and you know, I've got review copies and things like that. So the people I play games with, we normally play review copies I have, so I can learn how to play the game, and then I'll either go away and play on my own if it's a campaign game, or yeah, it'll go on to the next game. So when you're playing a modern board game which has a solo mechanic and it's a deck builder, it can be really intimidating, because if you imagine most solo games, most games which you have solo modes, you have to play multiple characters in it, and if you've got multiple decks you're having to deal with, it can get a little confusing, tricky, and there's so many rules you have to keep in mind when you're playing modern board games that you can just forget stuff, and then you know, you're an hour through a game and gone, oh, I've been playing this wrong this entire time, or maybe that's just me. But recently there's been a bit of a movement with solo narrative campaign games, I'd say. So I first saw this in Oathsworn Enter Deepswood, where you had the option to play with multiple characters but a simplified version of them. Earth Under Siege Flashpoint did exactly the same thing, and that's a similar style of game, if I'm honest. Whereas this one, you've got the same thing. You've got a reduced complexity version of the character. So if you're playing this solo, just full disclosure here, you won't be just playing as one character. You'll have a captain, and then you'll have 2 additional characters who will be playing as backup in there. They don't have decks you're worrying about. They just have health, and they have specific character abilities which are specific just for them. So yeah, the solo mode for this, really enjoyed it. I think it's a really good addition in these kind of modern board games to have simplified versions, so you can still play the same kind of game, the same level of difficulty, but yeah, without having to handle multiple kind of decks to build up. So with the deck building element of this itself, you're going to be earning experience. You've got kind of 2 decks in here. You've got your skill deck and you've got your ammo decks. Your ammo decks are specific to your kind of weapons, and depending which weapon you have a different ammo deck. The ammo deck itself is pretty cool. You've basically got hits and misses and all sorts of stuff that can cause conditions and things. And yeah, as you go through, you can basically exchange cards out, put them in, and you've got a really cool kind of ammo deck, which is specific for your playstyle. Skill deck, the same thing. You can go through and yeah, add additional cards to your deck, and really get to a point where you've got a really honed character which plays to your playstyle. Let's talk about the gameplay itself. Each of the characters, by the way, are really fun, and they play quite differently. I've had a couple of games, one with the operative, one with the vanguard. I've not played with the other 2 characters, but they played pretty differently. I did enjoy that. So let's talk about a round and how you play this game. So first thing you do is you have your squad formation. You're basically going to choose off this roster of options where you're going to go. Now, what this essentially is a bit of an initiative track, and depending on where you go on this depends on how quickly you're going to act. Now, also depending on where you go on this, that depends how many action points you're going to have in the turn. Now, what's important about action points is the cards that you're going to use for your turn will be spending 0, 1, 2 action points. So you know what you've got in your hand. You want to make sure that you can play your turn effectively. So yeah, you've got to really think about where you want to be on the initiative track. The other thing the initiative track does, it gives you resolve points, which resolve points you can use to activate your kind of character-specific mantra, which has some really cool abilities, which are specific just to your guy, or gal, or alien creature, or robot, or whatever you're playing with. It also determines your threat. So in this game, you've got a kind of a threat tracker for the enemy AI, so they know who to attack. And obviously who's the most threatening is going to be the character they're going to be attacking first. Now, it's very important in the very first mission you play that your threat is high, because there are colonists on there you're trying to save. And the last thing you want to do is have them get taken out because you've been, you know, kind of like staying in the back and not really trying to save these guys. So the threat as well, by the way, that also is impacted by your skill cards. They can add additional kind of threat, and depending on what you're doing, you can really manipulate that board to your favor. Like I say, it's a very strategic game, which is why I think when I play this XCOM, when you've set your formation, you're also going to be having the enemy. Once everyone's set their formation, the enemy will then set their formation. So you don't really know where they're going to go. But yeah, that's quite interesting as well, because wherever they are on that threat, that kind of initiative tracker, they will always activate before you if they're on the same level. So if you choose the on point, for instance, and they also chose on point, they'll go first. Yeah, so that's how that squad formation works. During your turn is pretty simple stuff. You're going to be using actions to move around and play your cards. The cards will enable you to do things like combat. The combat in this game is fantastic. The ammo deck, I think, is sheer genius. It's such a great idea. So many games these days, well, not these days, but so many games, you're rolling dice, or, you know, you've got like specific numbers you're dealing or whatever. This time around, you have an ammo deck, which is built of various different kind of hits, and there's like a miss in there. And you get to choose when you're attacking with your weapon. You get to choose if you want to do a pulse, which is like you're just going to draw one card out there, or a burst where you're going to draw 3 cards and one of them's going to be discarded. It all depends on what weapon you've got, on how many cards you'll be pulling out. But yeah, so you're going to be pulling these cards out, and then you know what's left in your deck. So you know, for instance, if in that very first turn you've got a miss, the rest of your deck is golden. You're going to be in a fantastic place. So it really helps you kind of strategize, you know, how you're going to kind of do your turns, and how to approach the enemies, for instance. So I really enjoyed the ammo deck. I think that's a great idea. And you can spend, once you're running out of ammo, you can then reload, which makes sense. So thematically, and anybody watching my channel knows that anything where the gameplay and the thematics kind of narrative, overworld kind of theme marry, that is for me the best style of game. There's nothing worse than playing a game and you're like, well, I'm just building a deck here, or I'm just moving here, but it's not really, doesn't feel thematic. So yeah, everything in this game, I would say, feels really thematic. The health, how they do the health in this game as well is pretty good. It's broken down into like 4 sections. You've got your head, your arms, and your legs. And then you've also got your chest. Now, your chest is your main kind of hit points. Once that's reduced, you're normally kind of knocked out the scenario. Whereas the head, the legs, and the arms, you can get these trauma cards. And the trauma cards, things added to your deck. And they are pretty bad things that can really, really impact your turn. But once again, there's mitigation that you can use resolve points and a number of action points on your turn to actually get rid of those cards. So it's, yeah, it's pretty cool. I really enjoyed that. There is, like I say, there is a whole kind of galaxy-spanning adventure where you're going to be moving around in ships and exploring stuff. But yeah, that's not included in the prototype, so I couldn't tell you anything about that. But the trailer certainly looks really fun. There's also scenario events in the game as well. So when you're kind of drawing these cards every round, you're going to have these event cards, which will kind of, when you get the scenario side of things, they really add some nice thematic kind of punch and narrative into it, which is great. You can kind of guess looking at the board sometimes what's going to happen. So there's some like spawn points. You might be like, well, something's going to come there. If there's a door on the map, you're like, well, that's going to open and something horrible is going to come out. So yeah, so it's the scenarios, the events I've really enjoyed. I thought they're very thematic and really kind of make it feel dynamic. Obviously, if you played the scenario before, you're going to know what's going to happen. But for the most time, these days, people have rarely get through a game more than once, in my opinion anyway. When you have a lot of games, it's hard to get through a game more than once. But yeah, I think it does add a lot of variety, and when you've got these branching narrative campaigns, I guess I'm saying. But yeah, the scenario events, I think that's fantastic fun. And these monster cards as well, where you can basically have these overpowered abilities. Great, it can really help you out in a pinch. And I guess that's about it really for Terminus Frontier. I'm really disappointed because I really wanted to show you some actual footage of me playing this game, but unfortunately I couldn't get around to getting this. You know, I was learning this, I was playing it, and yeah, over the period of a couple of days I've been playing this and getting to grips with it. And yeah, with a young baby around the house, it's been very difficult to actually film stuff. But just from a pure review perspective of a guy who's played this a couple of times, has an idea of how this game is cooking up. This for me is definitely, this is one I would definitely get myself. It's just really interesting that you've got this kind of, the theme of it, you're just going around into this kind of like world where you're trying to take out the trash. I just love sci-fi co-op narrative games and campaign games in general. They just hit a sweet spot for me. And I think if you've got a group of people who are really into the same kind of things as you, this is a fantastic buy. If you are looking for the next campaign game to play with your friends, this is it. If you love sci-fi, XCOM, I don't think I can say much more about this game other than, yeah, for me this is a buy. Like I say though, I've had limited experience with this game. I played a couple of things of this, a couple of games, and I've enjoyed what I've played. And normally, for me, playing a game twice gives me a really good idea of whether this is something, yeah, I could really get into. But obviously I've not played the stealth, I've not played the boss, so there's a load of extra things I can dig into here. And I'm hoping to get some of these videos up on the channel for you, but I wanted to put this out before the crowdfunding goes, because I don't want anybody sleeping on this. If you have seen it and you're like, this is interesting, please go out and watch some videos of the actual gameplay, because it will go into a much better detail than I did to tell you how those turns work out. And it just looks great on the table as well, guys. You've got 3D terrain in there. It just pops. It's great. They've put a lot of thought, time and effort into this game, and it really comes through. Just the amount I played so far, I am jonesing to get back to the table and carry this on. We will do some gameplay videos up on the channel, so please stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, follow the link below, go and support their crowdfunding, because yeah, it is a really fun game which definitely deserves some time and attention. Well, that's about it from me. I've been the ever excitable Adam. Until next time, guys, stay safe or die rolling.